Welcome to a very different episode of Gridbusters. So we had a huge storm last night here in France, and it's knocked out power not only to our house but around, I think it's like 1 million houses here in France. The national grid on the west coast here in France has apparently just been completely decimated. You know, it's like a mini hurricane. All the power lines are down. So we're not going to have power here for quite a while, I guess. So I woke up this morning, last night I could hear the wind blowing. I was super worried that the roof was going to come off or something. I think we have had a few tiles off the roof, so we're going to have to get that fixed. But the first port of call today is I want to get the battery connected. So inside the plant room, we do have the 15 kilowatt hour battery, which is 100% charged. The inverter is screwed to the wall. We have all the equipment kind of like ready. Obviously, we haven't installed the solar panels because we're waiting for planning permission yet. That's kind of like one of the reasons why I haven't made a video for a while. So today what I'm going to do is, it's a little bit dark, so I've got a battery powered work light. We're going to go into the plant room. We're going to see what connectors, what cables and things we have. And I'm going to hook up some sort of extension lead going through into the house, into the plant room, and then from that extension lead then we can power things like the fridge, the freezer, important things like that, some temporary lighting, and also the internet as well. So let's get on with it. Right, so it's a little bit dark in the plant room there. Now I do have this Makita battery powered work light, which can also run off the mains, but I do have about 3 of these batteries. So let's get that connected up so we can kind of like see what we are doing. So let's just turn the power on. Just going to shut the door here because it is pouring with rain and I don't want water to get in here. Okay, let's see what we can see. So I have hooked up a few things already. So I've temporarily connected up an earth cable to the inverter, and I rooted around in my parts bin and I did find some cable. Now this isn't actually 16 amp cable. The only cable I had that was long enough to go to the house is lighting cable, so I'm going to have to keep this down to 10 amps, 240 volts, 10 amps. So it goes through the attic and then down through a hole in the attic, which we had actually made for when we moved the fuse box from the main house to this house. We're actually going to extend all the cables. So we had actually already made a hole through the ceiling in the attic down into our hallway upstairs. So I've run that cable. I didn't want to just run an extension lead out through the door and in through the window because it's pouring with rain, it's windy, we've got double glazing. If we had a cable going through the door or through the window, we wouldn't actually then be able to close the window or doors, and it is really cold. So I'm really lucky that we were able to take a mains cable from here directly through into the house. Now, the other thing is, a lot of people will be asking, why am I just using the extension lead? Why don't I just like connect up this inverter to our fuse box? I could do that, and if I hooked up the inverter directly to our fuse box, then everything in the house would just kind of like work as normal. Couple of things. Firstly, I've only got a 10 amp cable in stock. That's all I actually have. All the shops are closed because they can't process any money. So the only shops that are open are a few corner shops at the moment, which are taking cash only, so they can't process any payments. All the payment processing is down. So like all the big stores just are closed, so I can't even buy anything at the moment. So I can't run any kind of I can't go out and buy some cable quickly. Now, the other thing is, if I did hook it up to the main fuse box, I would have to then start ripping apart the fuse box because I would have to disconnect the grid connection because there's going to be workmen working on the electricity system, and if I just hook this up to the fuse box, I could backfeed the grid and actually kill somebody who's working on like a cable down the road or something. So that's like a really, really, really big no-no. So yeah, just didn't want to do that, which is why this is all being kept completely independent of our normal power system. So this cable is in essence like an extension cable, which is just going to go through into our house, and then I'll put a splitter on that, power the fridge, power the freezer, and a few lights, keeping it under 10 amps. You know, I've only got 15 kilowatt hours of battery, you know, and then once that's gone, it's gone. If this power cut goes on longer than that battery, I don't know what we'll do then. Maybe we'll have to get a generator or something. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is hook up this cable. So I just need to extend these lugs, these cables here, split these out, and then put them into the inverter. I've actually temporarily hooked up the earth. Like I said, I don't have any ring terminals for this or anything in stock, so it's a little bit horrible there, but it is securely in. That's all torqued up. So what I'm going to do is hook up to AC out number 1. So with live neutral and the earth. Like I said, I don't have any ring terminals, but I'll wrap the cable around and then tighten it and make sure it's 100% tight. And then what we'll do is we'll get some, I actually do have some battery cables which I made previously, which were just temporary ones for testing. So I will use those and hook those up here down to where the battery is. I think I'll have to move the battery over here, I think. Let's get these cables stripped off. I want a nice amount of copper so I can bend it around the terminal. I think that's probably about enough. I apologise for the bad camera work. I don't have my tripod to hand. Obviously, I have very little lighting. Okay, there we go. So let's get that installed. I'm going to hook this into AC out 1. There are actually 2 AC outputs, but I'm just going to hook it into AC out 1. Apologise for the crudeness of this video, but don't have access to everything I normally have. So, like I said, I don't have the right ring terminals for this, and all the shops are shut because of this power outage. So, let me see. Hopefully, I'm only going to be drawing 10 amps from this, so... Or probably less, actually. I tell you, having this power cut really brings home why I need to install this system. It really does. I can't, this is like... I wish I already had it installed. I'm quite lucky I've already got this stuff here. Okay. Not happy with that, blimey. Oh. Not having ring terminals is making this really hard. Let's see if that's better. Yeah, there we go. So, I'm not sure if you can see that or not. Probably not. Right, so the final thing now is to actually hook up the battery to the inverter. I have these cables which I had previously made for the bench power supply and for some testing purposes. So I've got I mean they're the wrong colours, but I know what's what, so I'll do, you know, blue for neutral and black for positive. And I do have a second pair, which I have actually just made up. So I was a bit worried about just using one pair of these. I know I'm only going to be drawing 10 amps. I just want to be really cautious with this. So this cable is way too thin, I think. So just to be super cautious, I'm going to double it up. Never be too, just never be too careful. So I'm going to be running 4 cables, 2 neutral, 2 positives, and that way I've got myself covered there. So got to be really careful. Now the other thing I need to do is I need to pre-charge the capacitors in the inverter, because if I hook up the neutral and then I hook up the live, as soon as I hook it up there'll be a big spark and that might damage something. So I don't have any resistors or anything like this, which is what you would normally use. So what I'm going to use is the bench power supply to charge up the capacitors in the Victron inverter. So that when I connect up the battery, there isn't a huge inrush of current, which might damage something. And I know there would be a massive spark if I did that as well. So the question is, how am I going to power the bench power supply to do that? Well, so yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I actually have several UPS units down here in the rack. So these are battery powered UPS units, which I use to power all my equipment in case of a very short power cut. So we quite often have these really short kind of 1 second, 2 second power cuts, and it's actually destroyed computers of mine. I've had computers which have, I've lost hard drives. One of these NAS units last year, I lost an entire RAID because the power went off, went on, went off, went on, went off, went on in quick succession, and actually destroyed one of the RAIDs. I've got 2 RAIDs in one of those boxes, and it actually destroyed it, and I lost a bunch of data. So since then what I've done is I bought a separate UPS unit for each one of my NAS units. We've got separate UPS units in the house for the Starlink, another separate UPS unit for my main computer. And that just really protects everything. And then obviously when there is a big power cut, I just go around and shut everything down manually, and that protects all the equipment. So we actually do have quite a lot of power stored up in all these UPS units around the house. So what I will do is I will plug my bench power supply into one of those UPS units, and then I can use it to pre-charge the capacitors here in the Victron inverter. That should only take like a few seconds. I reckon it would, with the bench power supply. I'll probably only run it at 4 or 5 volts, something like that. If I do that, I reckon it will charge those capacitors in sort of maybe 1 minute or less, and then I can hook everything up in safety. So let's get on with it. I think the first thing I realized is that these cables aren't long enough to reach the battery. Luckily the battery is on wheels, so I need to wheel the battery over here underneath the inverter, and then we can get everything hooked up. This thing is seriously heavy. This thing weighs more than me, but luckily it is on wheels, but this rubber floor isn't glued down, so not good for the floor, this. So I'm going to do it sideways, I think. Yeah, it's folded the... Oh dear. If I was putting this floor down again, I think I would use contact adhesive to glue this floor down, especially when you're wheeling around 100 kilo batteries. Okay, so yeah, I think we're good there. I think I'll just move this over here a little bit. There we go. So the first thing I need to do is just loosen up all these bolts. So the first thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up both the neutral cables. Obviously I won't hook up the positive cables yet because I need to charge the capacitors in the inverter. So we're going to be using blue for neutral. This is just a temporary setup. I know I'm not doing things correctly, but this is an emergency situation at the moment. So need to get power to the house as quickly as possible before everything in the fridge and the freezer and everything defrosts, and before it gets dark, because it won't be too fun being in the house at night and it's pitch dark. That wouldn't be good. So alright, there we go. There we go. Just making sure the battery is actually off. Yes, it is. Right, so let's get the other end hooked up to the inverter. So we need to get these hooked up. So first thing I'm going to do is loosen all these up. Okay. I apologise for the poor lighting. Obviously, yeah, this is a bit of an unusual situation. So we've got a washer and a lock washer, and then we have a nut there. Oh, the lock washer has come off. There we go. Trying not to get in front of the camera here. Okay, for some reason I can't get that on. I think I need to put that the other way around. There we go. That's better. Right. So put the cable the other way around, it actually then lays flat. So, user error. Right. I actually don't know what torque these should go up to, but I'm just gonna use common sense. Obviously, I'm not going to be pulling 15,000 watts from this that it's rated for. To be honest, I would be amazed if we pull 1,000 watts from it. So I think we'll probably be keeping this under 1,000 watts. Maybe we've got about 250 watts for the fridge. Although it probably has a 300 or 400 watt startup, but it's probably about 250 watts, I reckon. I know the Starlink is around 200 watts, 150, 200 watts, something like that. So that's going to be switched on. And then we've got a chest freezer, which is about, 250 watts. So that's 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so we're going to be probably around about a kilowatt, which will mean that that battery, if we're really careful with the battery, it might last 2 days. So, right, double checking that is absolutely tight. Yes, it is. I've got the bench power supply here. Let's just bring this a bit closer. I need to go and turn the UPS on. It will start bleeping because there's no mains power. I apologise about that. So let me just turn one of the UPSs on, the bottom one here. Okay, that's going to bleep every now and again because it's complaining that it doesn't have any mains power. So let's turn this on. Here we go. And we're gonna, let's take this down to, let's take this to, okay. So we've got negative that. And we've got our positive here. And I'm going to turn this on and we'll see what the current is. So we've got 4 volts there. Okay, so we've got no current going through there. Let me turn that off. Let's do 10 volts. Okay, yep, we've just got a little bit of current go through there. So that capacitor now should be charged. Fantastic, so I'm just going to turn that off. There we go. Being very careful that we don't get a short. That would be the last thing I need now. So let's just disconnect that one. And let's use the screwdriver here. I'm not going to get up to turn that UPS off until this cable is securely in. Okay. Right, done. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn the battery on. Make sure we're all kind of like good to go there. So we have everything hooked up. I'm just going to do one final test. So we've got blue, which is on the negative. That is definitely going through to the negative. And black, which is positive. I've got a plus there, so that is definitely positive. That's going through to the orange, which I know is positive. So we're all set. We've got our AC output hooked up to AC out number 1. Brown is live, blue is neutral. We have our green earth connected. We have our main earth connected to the outside earth spike, which has been tested by an electrician, so we know that's good. That's like our new earth. So let's go. Let's hope it doesn't blow up. Yay, we're on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to hook up is the chest freezer, which is in the room next door. So I do actually have a plug hooked up. So okay, so success. Got everything plugged in. Well, I've got the internet powered up. I've got the fridge freezer in the kitchen here powered on. I've got a temporary light hooked up behind me. Got some more temporary lights as well. Plus we've got the chest freezer plugged in as well. So got some power. Hopefully this power cut's not going to last too long. But one other thing I do have, which is super cool actually, is we have a little mini inverter. Now we use Ego power tools, and I'm probably going to do a separate video on this. So we have a battery powered lawnmower, battery powered strimmer or weed whacker, hedge trimmers, chainsaws, and they all run off the Ego battery platform. And the Ego battery powered garden tools are the best that are currently available, better than Stihl, better than all these other companies. They have the best technology right now. Anyway, so we have this mini inverter. Let me just show you. So this is it here. This is the Ego battery. This is a 12 amp hour battery. It runs at 56 volts. And then this little thing which slots on the top is an inverter. And you can see here there's just a normal domestic 240 volt plug socket here. And there's also a couple of USB ports to charge your phone. Now this is only 150 watts, so it is really seriously limited. I can't even run my gaming laptop from this. I could probably charge it. I could probably charge a laptop from it, but I can just turn this on, and boom, we do have light. So I'm going to use this to power the light in the living room. I'm going to turn that off. I know from previous experience this will run this light for about 20 hours. So, and we've got about 4 of these batteries, so yeah, really cool. However, this doesn't have an earth, so I can't hook up certain things to it. Even like my the interesting thing is we have a full gas range, so a range cooker that has gas hob, gas oven, everything, and obviously that's brilliant now because we don't have any electricity, so I can use the gas hob. However, the oven, even though it's a gas oven, it still needs electricity because it has it's like a safety feature, which is an electronically controlled valve, so that you don't leave the gas on by accident and blow up your kitchen. So I did actually try hooking it up to the Ego inverter here, but it came up with like some sort of error message. It just wouldn't work, and I'm guessing it's something to do with the earthing. So I have hooked it up to the inverter just now to test it because I wanted to put a pasty in the oven to have that for my lunch, and it works fine. So it works fine from the Victron inverter because it's got like a proper earth and everything. So it doesn't use very much power at all because it's just literally just a motor to open the gas valve. But it's interesting. But anyways, these little mini inverters, really cool. They do have like a 400 or 500 watt one coming out next year, and they also have like a big power station coming out as well, which is like a mini generator, I guess, which takes 4 of those batteries. So I'll probably get one of those in for a review, or maybe I'll buy one. I'm certainly going to buy the the 400 watt mini inverter because it's super useful. Okay guys, well I will report back and let you know how the power cut's gone, and like I said, hopefully it doesn't last too long. So it's a week later, and that power cut went on for 5 days. Absolutely crazy. We had no electricity for 5 days. Never thought it would last that long. So what actually happened? Well, the battery, our 15 kilowatt hour battery, we managed to get almost 3 days out of it. At the end of day 3, the battery was at about 8%. And I thought, actually, I just better turn it off, because I thought, well, we've got a little bit of power. We can still use that power for, you know, emergency use for the internet, things like that. So at 8%, I actually shut the battery down. And then we had nothing. I mean, the only thing we did have still were some of our lawnmower batteries, the Ego batteries. We have quite a few of those. And we have that little mini inverter, which I showed earlier. Now the problem with that is it's only 150 watts, so it can't even power the Starlink. It overheats. It powers the Starlink for about 10 minutes and then it overheats and shuts down. Now I think that's because in the Starlink dish there is actually a heater which is meant to defrost snow and stuff like that. So as soon as that kicks in, it turns off. But we did manage to use that Ego power adapter to power some lights and to charge our phones and stuff like that. So that's what we used. So what we actually ended up doing was we thought, well, why don't we get like an emergency generator? Because actually having a generator is quite good for, you know, if we had a repeat, you know, let's say we had another 1 week power cut in, you know, next year or something, or in 3 years time. And what if it was the winter and we had no solar power? If it was like, you know, dark and gloomy days all day, what would we do? Well, it would be really good to have a generator. So that's what we decided to do, because we've got all the solar panels, but we couldn't really hook them up because I didn't have any of the cable in stock. I didn't have any of the connectors. It was still quite windy, so I didn't want to just lean the solar panels up against the barn. I was worried that they'd get blown over. So yeah, and you know, the other thing was I tried to connect up the the Victron Quattro to my laptop via the USB interface, and I just simply could not get it connected to my laptop to configure it. So even if I had managed to get the whole system kind of like set up, I wouldn't have been able to configure anything because I wasn't able to get it hooked up to my laptop. Plus I didn't really have, you know, the internet connection. The battery was going lower and lower and lower, and I just thought, you know what, we just need to get something sorted. So we went into town, we thought, right, we're going to buy a generator, or maybe we should rent a generator. So we went to a plant hire shop in Sanlo, our local city. This is like a place where we've hired machinery in the past. It's where we hired the drill to drill up the floor in this room, actually, originally when we converted it. And we walked in and we said, oh yeah, we'd like to hire a generator. And the men behind the counter all started laughing because obviously there were no generators available in the whole of France. They were all completely gone. And then we thought, well, maybe we might be able to find one if we go to some like home improvement stores. There's a big, you know, DIY store. We went to like 4 different stores. Everywhere was completely sold out. Obviously, the whole of France was sold out of generators. However, we had a chat with our gardener, and he had like a friend of a friend who had one for sale. And we managed to buy a second-hand generator. And we paid about, I would say, almost as much as a new generator would cost for this really old second-hand generator that was kind of like on its last legs. So we bought this thing. I just thought, yeah, okay, I don't care. I just gotta buy this thing. I think it was like 300 euros, and the list price of a similar generator was about 450 euros. So this thing was really old. So anyway, I got this thing, plugged it all in. I ran a cable from the barn. Actually, it's still here. Here it is. So what I actually did was I just hooked this cable directly up to the cable which runs through our attic, and it worked. So we actually had power in the house. Now that thing could only generate, I think it was 2 kilowatts maximum, which was fine. And the annoying thing is I couldn't use it to charge the batteries because, like I said, the Quattro, I couldn't actually hook up the Quattro to the laptop. It just wouldn't connect. In fact, I still can't do it. So I need to actually contact Victron and find out what's going on there. So we powered the house, but what very quickly happened was the generator was like literally on its last legs. It was starting to leak fuel. So I emailed the guy who sold it to us, and he said, "Oh yeah, just put a drip tray underneath. It'll be fine." You know, it's like great, you know. And then our gardener said, "Well, I've got a mate who's a mechanic. Maybe he can fix it for you." And he said he can come in like 3 days time. So, oh gosh, okay. So we just carried on. This fuel leak got worse and worse and worse. So eventually it's just started like flowing out. So we just turned it off because it was getting really dangerous. There was a lot of fuel coming out. We took it to a local garage down the road, which sells petrol. And they had it was just a little hose. So we put a new hose in it, and that seemed to fix the fuel problem. But after about another half a day, it stopped running completely, and we couldn't. It was a pull start, you know, with like a lawnmower, and it just would not start anymore. And then for the last day, we still didn't have power. And then the guy came to repair it. So he came to repair it, and he said, "Oh, it's going to take me like about a week to fix it." So I was like, great. So he took it off, and he's actually bought it back since, and it works perfectly now. But now we've got power. So that was the power cut, but you know we did, you know, the actual the battery itself did supply us with power, and the inverter did work, and we were able to, you know, power everything in the house for several days, which was great. The good news is that the components for the second battery have just arrived, so I'm going to start putting that together very, very soon. And we also have a generator. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put a generator input plug inside the barn. And then we've got that, and I'm going to hook it up to the Quattro. And then in the future, if we ever in a similar situation where we have a long power cut and there's no sun for the solar panels, it's in the middle of winter or it's bad weather, we will have kind of like a backup generator on hand. I think we need to probably it'd be a good idea to get it serviced once a year, maybe, if it's just sitting there. If any of you in the comments know what, you know, this doesn't use diesel, it's petrol or gasoline. So if I just have that sitting there in my barn, will the petrol kind of go off? Will it go stale? I don't know much about engines or anything, but I'm just imagining in a scenario where I've got this generator kind of like just sitting there in the barn for 3 years, and then we have like some big mega power cut. Will it work? Or should I be draining all the fuel out of it and putting it into like cold storage somehow, doing certain things to it so it's like okay for 3 years just sitting there, and then bring it out and it should work? Or should I be like running it for an hour once a year, or taking it in to be serviced once a year, even if it's not doing anything? Let me know in the comments what I should do for long-term generator storage that uses petrol. Yeah, so that it would be reliable in an emergency. How should I store it for long term? You know, it might be sitting there on a shelf for 5 years, and then suddenly we've got an emergency, but we don't want to be in a situation where 5 years time we've got some mega emergency, all the power grid's gone down, it's dark. How do I use a generator? You know, if I try to pull it, will everything be clogged up inside because it hasn't run for so long? Should I be running it every month? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to know your opinion on generators. Or should I just sell it and get a diesel generator which can just sit there for years on end? Or I don't know, maybe you have to do regular maintenance to these things. I really don't know. But yeah, so the next thing I'm going to be doing, the next video, is I'm going to be permanently hooking up the battery to the bus bars behind me, and then up to the Quattro. So I don't have all these crazy temporary cables going around. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the next video, and I'll catch you next time.